I'm Ellis, and today we are reporting live from Sicily. Carthage has just teamed up with Syracuse to kick the Mamertines and the Romans out of the island. For those of you who weren't here previously, we have a little bit of a recap. Now, the Mamertines had massacred Syracuse after being fired by the newly appointed king. As they were fighting, they called on Carthage and Rome both to come and help them with the conflict. Now, when they got there, the Mamertines ultimately chose Rome to be their allies. So Carthage is now forced to team up with Syracuse, and the Mamertines are teamed up with the Romans. So you have two of the world's most influential powers, Carthage and Rome, going against each other in what will become known as the Punic Wars. So in this first battle of this First Punic War, we're just learning now that Rome has won. They defeat the Carthaginians and force them to retreat to Argentum, which is another city in Sicily. And there has been a major alliance switch already after just the first battle. Syracuse has decided that they only want to ally with winners, and so they partnered themselves with the Romans. So it's now Syracuse and Rome versus Carthage and the Mamertines. So Rome, they're feeling great about themselves, right? They just won the first couple battles. And Rome, they're Rome. They're very aggressive, they're very offensive. So their new goal is to conquer the entire island of Sicily. Rome's entire identity is pretty much power and offense and how much land can we conquer. That's what their whole pride and dignity is wrapped up in, is how much land did we acquire this week, essentially. So they're going to go after this goal of conquering Sicily with everything that they have. Turns out, the everything that they have is not much. They do not have a lot of supplies. Their army is not very strong. Luckily for them, Carthage is one of the most superior navies in the world at this time, and they have this beautiful boat called the Quinquereme that just happens to dock on Italian soil. So the Romans take advantage of this opportunity and copy exactly the Carthaginian ship. Okay. They build 120 ships in 2 months, go out to sea, challenge the Carthaginians to battle, and they lose. Right? They did all this work, building all these ships, just to lose to the Carthaginians. So they realized that it's not enough to just copy the enemy's design. You have to make it better. So they add this beam to the end of the ship called the corvus. That is this thing right here. It's like a wooden beam with a metal spear configuration right here. So this beam swivels around and can move in basically any direction, and it can come down onto the other person's ship. So that's what you're seeing here. The corvus is right there. It's like cutting the ship in half. So that's what they attempted to do to the Carthaginians. They go out after another few months, challenge the Carthaginians to a new battle. This time they're armed with their massive corvuses. Carthaginians see this and they're like, yeah, no thanks. Like, we don't want to fight against that. So they go and hide in a stone-walled enclosure until eventually the Romans give up. They're realizing that, look, this campaign in Sicily is taking so much longer than we thought it would. We're using so many more resources than we wanted to. Like, what are we going to do? This is not going well. They're starting to regret their choices. But thankfully for them, it's time for a new consul to be elected. Now, for those of you who were here in the last video, we talked about the structure of the Roman government. Two consuls, or leaders of Rome, that govern alongside the Senate. They rule at the same time for only 1 year, which is kind of incentivizing them to get as much power and glory as possible. Hence, part of the reason why Rome is very aggressive is because these consuls really want to conquer as much land as they can so that they can, eventually have these nice little statues of them in the Roman squares. But the new consuls that they elected is named Marcus Atilius Regulus, which, by the way, if any of y'all are looking for baby names, Marcus Atilius Regulus is the way to go. That just screams scholar. But anyways, he looks at it like this. He's like, guys, why are we attacking this small island of Sicily when we could be conquering Carthage itself? So he decides to invade the Carthaginian Empire, which is on the tip of northern Africa, so it's this region right here. So he's leaving this island of Sicily behind. He's like, nah, thanks, we don't need that. We need this whole thing. So he goes and starts the Battle of Cape Agnomus, which ironically is on the sea. So this is where the Roman corvuses are finally going to be a lethal weapon for them. They're able to destroy the Carthaginians and start to conquer some land. Finally, things are clicking for the Romans, and they're feeling great about themselves. They're on top of the world. They're like, guys, I know we didn't do such a good job in Sicily, but it's okay. We don't need to talk about that. That's in the past. In the present is when we are destroying the Carthaginians. We're plowing through all their land. We're the best empire in the world. Like, the Romans are feeling themselves right now. So they decide to attack deeper and deeper into Carthage. And the Carthaginians continue to lose. Now, some of the underlying causes of this is essentially the Carthaginian army is made up of mostly foreign mercenaries. So you have all these soldiers who don't speak the same language and who were raised with totally different military strategies coming together in one big melting pot of cultures, which kind of sounds nice, but also not, because they can't speak the same language, so they can't communicate all these strategic tactics to each other, so they're all just kind of out there doing their own thing. They don't really have any team chemistry, so it's not going well for them. Their generals are Carthaginian, so at least the generals can communicate, but let's just say the generals weren't the most competent. They made some pretty bad decisions, starting with war elephants. Now, war elephants were Carthaginians' greatest military advantage. They had these massive, amazing creatures to go and fight for them, right? So normally you would think, okay, I have this massive elephant who can plow through a ton of people. I'm going to put him at the front of my line so that way they can crash into the Roman army, or at the very least protect the Carthaginians from any Roman strikes. But no. The Carthaginian generals decide to put the elephants in the back of the army where they're no use to them. And some reports are telling us that the elephants actually rammed into their own Carthaginian soldiers, causing more casualties to their own side than to the Romans. So, not a great situation going on here. And the Carthaginian generals find a way to make it worse, because Carthage is bordered by this country called Numidia, which is right here. So, just to get your surroundings, here's Carthaginian Empire, here's Rome. This is Spain over here, the Iberian Peninsula, by the way, just a little side note. And then you have Numidia, which is the bordering country to Carthage right here. So, Numidia is an ally to Carthage, and they're known for their very quick, agile, expert cavalry and really skilled horses. When the Carthaginian generals got to pick where the next battle was, they choose uneven terrain. Okay, this terrain is very rocky, very hilly, not conducive at all to horses or to cavalry. So all these bad decisions are just spiraling into a series of Carthaginian losses. And Rome is faring pretty well for themselves, other than the fact that Marcus Attilius Regulus, the consul who is responsible for all of Rome's success thus far, his term is up. So the question is Rome going to be able to continue their winning streak? Is Carthage going to respond in any way? How are the Carthaginian generals going to step up? What is going to happen next? When the news breaks, you'll hear it here first on History Repeats Itself. Thanks for watching.